Hi, welcome to our live stream. In this live stream, I'm gonna show all the newest devices, all the newest phones, and two tablets. Uh, I have several of them, and I'm gonna start with the budget ones, then I'm gonna get to the more expensive ones, and I'm gonna explain their features, compare them, and show you everything about them. So let's begin with a very important one, which is which I have right here. This is the Samsung Galaxy A16. It is kind of a budget phone, but I think it's really good. And I'm gonna show you its features. As you can see, it has a very new design, like the S series. It doesn't look too budget, I think. And let's begin by the release date. So it was released on November 20, 2024, and it's a very normal size. It's 6.47 by 307 by 0.31 inches, and it weighs 7.05 ounces. So I think it looks really good. And also it has the Super AMOLED 90Hz display, which is the size of 6.7 inches. And the resolution of it is 1080 by 2340 pixels. It runs by default on Android 14, but let's check what's the newest version right now. So yes, it does run the Android 14. And the processor in this device is the MediaTek Helio G99. It's octa-core, and the GPU is Mali G57MC2. It features a micro SD card slot, which is pretty handy and not really common on modern devices. It also has two nano SIM slots, and the internal memory can be from 128 gigabytes up to 256, and the RAM can be from 4 to 6 and 8 gigabytes. Let's get to the cameras which we have on the back. So the cameras are actually pretty interesting. We have the triple camera, the 50 megapixels lens, which is the wide camera, then the 5 megapixel ultra wide, and also the 2 megapixel macro camera for taking photos from a very close perspective. Then also, of course, the LED flash, and the videos can be recorded in 1080p at 30 FPS. Then it doesn't have the 3.5 jack, but it's pretty common on the devices these days. So if you want to plug in some headphones, either use the Bluetooth ones, or you can also just get the adapter for the USB-C, because it's of course charged with a USB-C, as all of the phones right now. And speaking of charging, it has a 5000 milliamp hour battery, and can be charged by 25 watts maximum. So that's not the fastest charging, but I think it's enough for everyday use. It'll not be too slow. And as we have this phone behind us, we can get to another one, which is this Motorola Moto G05. So I think it has a really good color. This is the first thing that I've noticed. It really has a good color, and also the body is actually looks like a skin, sort of. I think it's just eco skin. And this phone was released actually this year. It was released on January 13th, and the dimensions of it, as you can see, compared to our Samsung, it's just a bit bigger. Not much, but just a bit, just enough to see maybe one line more on websites. As we can see it here, it is also, I think, the same thickness, and it's yes, it is the same thickness. It has 0.32 inches, and the width is 2.99, and the height is 6.52. And it weighs a bit less because it's 6.67 ounces. The front is from Gorilla Glass 3. It has the plastic frame, and the back is the silicone polymer eco leather. And it also features 2 nano SIM slots, and it has IP54 dust protectant and water resistancy. Then the display isn't AMOLED and isn't even OLED, unfortunately. It's only IPS LCD, but it's also 90 Hz, and it's 6.67 inches. Then the resolution also isn't as great as on the Samsung one, because here it's only 720 by 1604 pixels, which gives us the 20 by 9 aspect ratio, and it runs the Android 15 actually. The chipset is sort of the same as on the Samsung, because it's the MediaTek Helio G81 Extreme, which also is octa-core, and this phone also features the microSD card slot. The internal memory can range from between 64 gigabytes up to 256, and the RAM can be either 4 or 8 gigabytes. And going to the camera, I think that camera at the bottom is actually fake. I don't know. Yeah, it looks pretty fake, and it's not listed as it's a camera. So it actually is a single camera, 50 megapixels, and the LED flash. I don't really understand this decision with the fake camera, but okay, I at least it looks quite great. And it also can record videos in 1080p at 30 fps. Then the selfie camera in this phone is 8 megapixels, and it also can record videos in the same resolution and the same frame rate as the back one. And now let's get to the fact that both of these phones have fingerprint sensors on the power buttons on the right side. That comes pretty in handy when using the phone daily. And this one has a bit bigger battery, because it's not 5000, it's 5200 milliamp hours, and is charged at the 18 watt rate, which is a bit slower than the Samsung one, but I think it's still enough. And you can get it in different colors. This one is plum red, but there's also the fresh lavender, forest green, and misty blue. And the price of this phone is 119 euro, compared to the Samsung, which is actually 142 euro. And now, as we get to the next phones, I'm gonna show you them. So let's put these two away, and I'm gonna take the OPPO Reno13s. So the first one is the OPPO Reno13 F. I think, yes, this is the one. And the other one is the OPPO Reno13 Pro. And let's talk about them. The first things I can see here, this one has a bit of a bevel right here. The edges aren't too straight as here. They are a bit curved, so I think it looks great. It gives it a very stylish look. At the back they are pretty similar, but there are some differences. I really like the color of the F model. This is sort of a purplish color, and they both have 3 cameras, as you can see, 1, 2, these big ones and the small ones, but the flashes are in different places. Then the ports are pretty similar. The buttons and everything looks pretty similar, but the specs are a bit different between both of them. So the OPPO Reno13 F it was released on January 4, and this one, the Pro version, was released on November 29 last year. So it's a bit older, even though they seem to be the same generation. And let's compare their dimensions and other stuff. So I'm just gonna quickly see them. So they are almost exactly the same size. The F version is a bit thicker. It's 0.31 inches, whereas the Pro version is 0.3. Then it's also the Pro version is a bit wider and also a bit taller, but only by fractions of inches, so it's not really important. And they also weigh about the same, about 6.8 ounces. And the SIM cards on the F version, there are only 2 nano SIM slots, whereas on the Pro one there are 2 nano SIMs, and you can also install eSIMs. Of course, the maximum of 2 at a time, so we can either use 2 nano SIMs, 2 eSIMs, or 1 nano, 1 E. That's also pretty great, and they both have the same IP protection, so it's IP68 by IP69. That's a really good protection. This allows the phone to be resistant from high pressure water jets and immersible up to 2 meters for 30 minutes. So let's get to the screen, and they are also quite similar here because they are both AMOLED and both 120 Hz, but the Pro version includes HDR10 plus, whereas the F version doesn't. But I think as we get to the screens, as we unlock them, there's not much of a difference. As I can see here, the max brightness is about the same. It's 1200 nits. It's quite a lot. And I think both of these phones look pretty great and aren't too expensive, which I'm gonna get to in a moment. So now let's talk about the resolution. The F version, which is on the left side, has 1080 by 2400 pixels, which gives us the 20 by 9 aspect ratio, whereas the one on the right, the Pro, has 1272 by 2800, so that's a bit better pixel in density, but I think the difference isn't as visible. Then getting to the processors, the one on the right of course has a better one because it's the MediaTek Density 8350, whereas the one on the left is the MediaTek Helio G100. And now let's go to the card slots, because the F1 has a micro SD and the Pro one doesn't. That's pretty unfortunate. I don't really understand this decision to not include a card slot on a better model, as we can say. But I think it wouldn't be needed, since the Pro version can be from 256 gigabytes up to the 1 terabyte, and the RAM on this phone can be between 12 and 16 gigabytes. And on the F version, there are only two memory versions, so it's 256 or 512 gigabytes, and the RAM is always 8 gigabytes. Then let's go to the cameras, because here we also have quite a big of a difference. On the Pro version, there are two 50 megapixel lens, so the one is wide, then the other one is telephoto, which gives you 3.5 times optical zoom, and also it has the 8 megapixels ultra wide camera, so that's also pretty great. Whereas this one, the F version, has 50 megapixels camera, 8 megapixels camera for ultra wide, and the 2 megapixels for macro. And they both also have the LED flashes, but the Pro version can record videos in 4K at 30 or 60 FPS, or at 1080p at 30, 60 or 120 FPS, whereas the F version only has 1080p at 30 or 60 FPS. And the front cameras are also a bit different, because the Pro version has 50 megapixel camera at the front with autofocus, and the one on the left has only 32 megapixels. But both of them record at about the same video rate, so it's pretty similar. And let's get to the battery now, because it's a really important factor. On both of these phones, there is the 5800 mAh battery featured, and the Pro version charges a bit faster. So the F version charges at 45 watts and only wired, or also can charge another phone with reverse wired, but the Pro version can be charged with 80 watts wired, that's quite a lot, or 50 watts wireless. And it has also the reverse charging, but also only wired. And the colors are probably, I think, similar, because the F version has graphic gray, skyline blue, and the plum purple, which I have right here, whereas the Pro version has graphic gray as well, and the plum purple as well, but also has pink instead of skyline blue. I think I have the graphic gray right here. And now let's get to the prices. So I'm just gonna quickly find the price. So the F version is at about $350. So I think that's a fair price for this phone. Whereas the Pro version is a bit different, because it's at $600. But I also think it's a really fair price for this phone, and I would really recommend for someone who wants a phone like this. I think it's worth getting. And since we have these two ahead of us, we can get to the other ones. So now I have the next ones, which are pretty exciting. The iPhone 16e. This is a very fresh release. I have it right here. This is in the white version. It is really pretty, and it looks on the front like the iPhone 13 and 14, but it is a budget iPhone, so it's pretty great, and I'm gonna talk about it in a moment. But also I have another fresh release, which is the Samsung Galaxy 25 Plus, I believe. And I'm gonna also put it right here, and let's compare them. So I'm just gonna quickly unlock them, and let's look at them both. So the iPhone was released on February 28 this year, so it's really fresh. It's been like 5 days ago, or even less, 10 days actually. And the one on the right, the Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus, is from February 03. So now let's get to the dimensions as usual. And the iPhone is a bit smaller. You can see it right here. The iPhone is 5.78 inches by 2.81 by 0.31, and the Samsung is 6.24 by 2.98 by 0.29. So the thickness is a bit different. I think I mean a bit similar. And let's look at the backs of this phones, because they are quite different. You can see here we have the triple camera, and here only the singular one, which actually acts like a 2-in-1 camera, which I'm gonna get to in a moment. So let's do that. I'm just gonna turn the brightness a bit down and zoom everything in so we can see it better. And now let's talk about the next thing, which is the weight. Of course, this phone is a bit lighter because it's also smaller. It is 5.89 ounces, and the one on the right is 6.7 ounces. And here we also have differences with SIMs. So the iPhone has one nano SIM in the international version and no nano SIM in USA version. And here we have 2 nano SIMs. I think in the international version. In the USA we have only 1 nano SIM, and both of these phones have eSIMs. Of course, this is pretty usual these days with modern phones to have eSIMs, and I think it's great. I really like this feature. So in the international version, in international and in the USA, the iPhone can have 2 eSIMs at a time, but it can have 8 eSIMs saved in the memory. But in China it's unavailable. And on Samsung you also can have 2 eSIMs at a time, either in international or USA, but in China not. Then they both have IP68 dust tight and water resistant, which are a bit different when it comes to what manufacturer says. For iPhone, the manufacturer says that it's immersible up to 6 meters for 30 minutes, whereas on the Samsung they say it's immersible for 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. And the screens here are also pretty debatable. I know a lot of people are a bit disappointed with the iPhone 60 Hz, but I don't really mind it. On the Samsung, it's 120 Hz, and they both are OLED, but the iPhone is called Super Retina XDR OLED, which has the HDR10, 80 nits at HBM, and 1200 nits at peak brightness. Whereas the Samsung has dynamic LTPO AMOLED 2X at 120 Hz, HDR10 Plus, and 2600 nits peak. So that's quite a lot, and it has 6.7 inches. The iPhone has 6.1. Then the resolution on iPhone is 1170 by 2532 pixels, which is 19.5 by 9 ratio, and the Samsung is also the same ratio, but at 1440 by 3120 pixels. And the Samsung has always on display, the iPhone doesn't, unfortunately. So now the chipset, the Samsung has Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite, which is in the 3nm technology, and also the iPhone has 3nm Apple A18, which is the newest chip currently available for iPhones, even though this is the budget phone. I mean budget iPhone, not budget phone. It's not really the cheapest phone on the market, but comparing to other iPhones, it's just one of the cheapest available right now. And as we get to the cores, this is hexa-core, the iPhone is hexa-core, and the Samsung is octa-core. Now the card slot, none of these phones have a card slot, unfortunately, but for quite a few years neither the S version of Samsung nor iPhones never had a card slot actually, but the S line of Samsung haven't had any memory card slots for quite a few years, and the internal memory is on the iPhone it's 128 gigabytes, 256 or 512 gigabytes, and always 8 gigabytes of RAM. When on the Samsung it's 256 gigabytes or 512 gigabytes, and always it has the 12 gigabytes of RAM. And now let's get to the camera, as we've spoken about before. So on the iPhone there is the 48 megapixel camera, which acts, like I said, as a 2-in-1 camera, because it can also merge the pixels on it in order to take photos that will appear as optical zoom, but of course it's the standard zoom, and I don't really think it's that important that it has the 2-in-1 camera, but I just wanted to mention it because it's something that Apple markets it as, and the Samsung has the triple camera, the 50 megapixel, 10 megapixel, and 12 megapixel. The 51 is wide, the 10 is telephoto, and the 12 megapixel is ultra wide. So that's pretty great. Then let's get to the video recording. So both of these phones can record at 4K, but only the Samsung can record at 8K. So it can record at 8K at 24 or 30 FPS, 4K at 30 or 60, or at 1080 at 30, 60, 120 or 240 FPS. And the iPhone can record at either 4K, 24, 25, 30 or 60 FPS, or at 1080p at 25, 30, 60 or 120 FPS. Both can record with HDR. The selfie cameras are about the same. Both are the 12 megapixels, and Also, the iPhone has Face ID, and the Samsung only bases on the camera for the face recognition. I don't think it's really secure, and I wouldn't set it up myself. But it has the fingerprint sensor hidden under the screen, which is the ultrasonic one, so it makes it a bit more secure and more accurate. Then the batteries are also a bit different because the Samsung has 4900 milliamp hours and the iPhone has 4000 milliamp hours. iPhone can be charged wired. It doesn't say with what rate, unfortunately, but it says that it's 50% in 30 minutes, so that's quite a good result. And also 6.5 wireless, so that's not too fast. But the Samsung has 35 wired, 35 watt wired charging, then also the 15 watt wireless and 4.5 reverse wireless, whereas the iPhone only has the reverse wired charging. So the iPhone also is available in black or in white, and the Samsung has quite a lot of colors. It's in icy blue, which I think this is the one that I have. Also mint, navy, silver shadow, pink gold, coral red, or blue black. And now let's get to the price. So the Samsung is a bit more expensive. Samsung is at $900 US dollars, of course, whereas the iPhone is at 600. It's not the best price, I think, but it's one of the cheapest phones you can get currently from Apple. So I think it's still nothing to be greedy about when it comes to iPhones. And yeah, so the Samsung is a bit more expensive, but it also is a bit bigger and has a bit more features and maybe better specification depending on your needs. And now I also have the last things that I want to show you, which, as I've promised at the beginning of this live stream, are the tablets. So Xiaomi has introduced recently two tablets, the Xiaomi Pad Pro Plus and the Xiaomi Pad Pro, and I'm gonna put them both in here. I hope I can fit them both. Let me quickly do that. So here is this is the Pad 7, the standard version, not the Pro, and here I have the Pro version. And I don't think they are too different, but we're gonna compare it, of course. I'm just gonna make it all more visible, and let's turn the screens on. I hope this one is set up. It's not. Okay, so I'm not gonna go through the setup process now, but you can see this is how the standard version looks. I think this is the one, or let me see. So yes, this is the standard version, this is the Pro one, and they look quite similar. I think the standard is a bit thicker, but let's compare it maybe. Okay, so let's start by the release date. They both have been released on October 29 last year, so they are quite fresh. The dimensions of them, hold on a second. The dimensions of them are exactly the same, 9.89 inches by 6.83 by 0.24 inches. Then the weight of them is also exactly the same, 1.1 pounds, and the build is also exactly the same. They look almost exactly the same. The only difference that I can see right now is the fact that you can see they both have the camera islands, but this one says it's 13 megapixels, whereas this one says it's 50. And the first thing that I've noticed as this tablet was laying somewhere and it was turned off, I thought it was a iPad because it looks similar at the bottom, on the side, everywhere. It just looks really similar, and I thought it's an iPad, but actually it's not. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe not, depending on your needs. And the second thing I've noticed, both of these tablets have like 3 fake cameras. I mean, it's not fake cameras, but it looks like an island for 3 cameras, but actually it has only one camera here. Then here is just the text that says it's 13 megapixels AI camera, then the flashlight and the fake camera with the microphone. So I think that's a bit of a shame to feature a whole island for 1 camera. But besides that, they are pretty similar. Now let's get to the displays. So both of them are IPS LCD, not OLED, HDR10, Dolby Vision, 800 nits peak, and they are both 144 hertz. The size is also the same, 11.2 inches, and the resolution is the same as well, which is 2136 by 3200 pixels, which is the 3:2 ratio, and the Pro version has always on display. The standard doesn't. Now they also both have Android 15, HyperOS 2, and the processors are a bit different because the standard version has Qualcomm Snapdragon 7 Plus Gen 3, and the Pro has Snapdragon 8S Gen 3. But they are both in 4nm technology and both octa-core. Now the memory, they also don't have any card slot, unfortunately, but the internal memory on the standard is either 126 gigabytes or 56 gigabytes. 128 or 256, and the RAM is either 8 or 12 gigabyte in the more internal disk storage space version, whereas the Pro version has either 128, 256 or 512 gigabytes of internal memory, and the RAM is either 8 or 12 gigabytes. Then the cameras, as I've mentioned earlier, are also a bit different because here it is the 13 megapixels, so it's not too much, but it allows you to take a photo in 4K, so I think it's quite enough. Then this one has the 50 megapixel camera, which also allows you to record videos and take photos in 4K at 30 or 60 FPS. Then the front cameras are also quite different because the Pro version has a front camera, of course, here, so it's more made for the horizontal than the vertical view. And this one also has the front camera right here, but the Pro version has 32 megapixels and the standard one has 8 megapixels, and they both record videos in 1080p at 30 FPS. Then they also both have 4 speakers in stereo and no audio jack. Now let's get to the battery, which is exactly the same on both. It's 8850 milliamp hours, but charging is a bit different. On the standard version it's 48 watts wired, and on the Pro, it's 67 watts, so it's a bit faster and allows you to charge up to 40% in 20 minutes. So you can just quickly recharge it and you're good to go. Then the colors on these both tablets available are black, blue, and green on the standard, or grey, blue, and green on the Pro. And the prices are not too different because the standard has 400 euro price and the Pro has 500 euros. So I would personally choose the standard one. I don't think the Pro has that much advantages that I would choose the Pro one. And these are about all the things that I wanted to show you. I'm just gonna quickly rewind, show you all the devices that I had here and list them so you can just go back to them. You can look them up yourself, and maybe one of them will be up to your likings and maybe you'll choose it for yourself. So let's just take all the devices that I had and I'm gonna name them, of course. Also, I think you can just check it in the description down below so you can read the device names. So this is the Xiaomi Pad 7. This is the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro. This is the Motorola Moto G05. This is the OPPO Reno13 F, OPPO Reno13 Pro, Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus, iPhone 16e, and the Samsung Galaxy A16. So there's quite a lot of these devices. I think it's in different budgets, so depending on your needs, depending on your budget, maybe some of them you'll choose. And I think that's all. I recommend watching another live streams in the future, and that's all. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.